Every click, every video, every scene literally changes the chemistry of your brain. And the scariest thing about all of this is that you don't even realize what's happening. You may think you're just passing the time, relaxing after a hard day, having harmless fun. But in reality, you are training your brain like programming a complex machine, creating neural patterns that will dictate your choices for years to come. Every time you seek out pornography, you are sending a powerful and unequivocal chemical message to your neurons. This is top priority. This is an essential reward. This is what I want more than anything else in life. And little by little, without you consciously realizing it, this programming becomes automatic, invisible, inescapable. Pornography is not just a harmless digital entertainment, as they want you to believe. It is a direct, sophisticated, and devastatingly effective hack into your central nervous system. While you sincerely believe that you are just relaxing, decompressing, satisfying a natural need, in practice, you are reinforcing a chemical pattern that systematically messes with your motivation, drains your vital energy, and completely distorts your natural ability to feel pleasure and satisfaction. It's as if you were changing the master password of your mind without even realizing you're doing it. And then when you try to focus on studying for that important test, working on that project that could change your career, training to get stronger, or even connecting intimately with someone you love, the brain responds with brutal indifference. No, sorry, I only get motivated with intense and immediate artificial stimulation. That's exactly why so many intelligent, capable men, full of potential, repeatedly fail on this journey. They sincerely believe that it's just a matter of willpower, of wanting more, of having more discipline or character. But they completely ignore that pornography acts at the root of everything, at the command center of human motivation, the brain. If you don't understand how this extraordinarily complex machine works, how it can be hijacked, how it can be reprogrammed, you will fight blindly against an enemy that you can't even see properly. But when you finally understand, when you see with scientific clarity what is really happening inside your head, the game changes completely. You realize that this is not a moral problem that reflects your character. It is not a lack of willpower that proves you are weak. It is not an incurable defect of your personality. It's pure neurochemistry. It's biology being exploited. It's chemistry being manipulated. And chemistry can be rebalanced, it can be adjusted, it can be restored to natural functioning. In this video, we will dive deep into what the most current science shows about the real impact of pornography on your neurochemistry. Not vague theories or moral opinions, but solid scientific data, studies with magnetic resonance imaging, longitudinal research with thousands of participants. I will show you exactly why the brain becomes addicted to this specific stimulus, why you feel so much difficulty in quitting even knowing rationally that you should, and how this addiction explains a series of symptoms that perhaps you have been carrying for years without ever connecting the dots. You will realize that it is no coincidence that you feel constant anxiety, inexplicable discouragement, chronic lack of motivation for things that should excite you. You will understand that it is not how you are, it is not your natural personality. All of this is directly linked to the systematic way that pornography hijacks your reward system and reprograms it to only respond to extreme artificial stimuli. And don't worry, this will not be a boring academic neurobiology class with incomprehensible technical terms. I will speak in a simple, direct, conversational way, as if we were sitting at a table talking about something that is changing your life. Because the goal here is not for you to become a neuroscientist or impress anyone with technical knowledge, but to understand enough to have total clarity about what is happening. Clarity that this cycle that seems eternal can be broken definitively. Clarity that your brain is not permanently broken or defective. Clarity that each day without pornography is not just enduring another day, but is literally a real, measurable, scientific step towards complete neurological freedom. So stay with me until the end of this dive into the science of recovery. Subscribe to the channel right now, because this series is being built strategically, day after day, and each chapter is a new weapon, an additional tool, a different perspective for you to use in this war for your own mind. And also comment on what day you are on at this moment, because this is not just about passively absorbing information, It's about creating active public commitment. Addiction hates when you speak out loud that you are fighting, when you come out of the isolation of shame and connect with other warriors facing the same battle. Today, you will understand with scientific clarity that pornography is not just a screen with images as they want to minimize. It is a sophisticated chemical virus that invades and messes with the command center of your life. But here is the hope. Like every virus, once you understand how it operates, it can be neutralized, it can be eliminated, it can be replaced by healthy patterns. The brain as a reward machine. To understand how pornography messes everything up, first you need to understand the basics. The brain works like a reward machine. It has a system called dopaminergic, which uses dopamine as fuel. This molecule is like a chemical messenger that says, "This is good, do it again." Dopamine is not the feeling of pleasure itself. It is the expectation of pleasure. It's what makes you get out of bed wanting to. It's what makes you study to pass a test. It's what makes you strive to conquer someone you like. Without dopamine, you have no motivation for anything. It's like the gasoline of the car. It's not the final destination, but without it, you don't go anywhere. And here is the detail. The brain was programmed to release dopamine in behaviors essential for survival. Eating when you are hungry, drinking when you are thirsty, taking care of social relationships, seeking real sex, which strengthens bonds and ensures the reproduction of the species. That is, the reward system was not made for the screen of a cell phone, but for real experiences that keep life going. When you eat something tasty, the brain releases dopamine. When you receive a compliment, the same happens. When you achieve a goal, such as finishing a project or winning a race, more dopamine. This is how the brain creates associations: effort, reward, motivation to repeat. This system is wonderful because it moves us forward, but it is also vulnerable. It can be deceived. It's like a safe that always opens with the same password. If someone discovers this password, they can steal everything. Pornography does exactly that. It discovers the password of the reward system and starts to exploit it non-stop. When you understand this mechanism, you realize that you are not weak for feeling desire. You are just reacting to a natural process that has been hijacked. Your brain doesn't know that the screen is not real. It only registers stimulus, dopamine, reward. The problem is that when this process is repeated thousands of times, the brain starts to change. The circuits are reinforced, the receptors adapt, and suddenly you realize that what seemed harmless has become compulsion. This is the central point. The brain is a powerful machine, but it is also naive. It does not differentiate what is healthy from what is artificial. It only responds to the stimulus. And pornography, as you will see in the next block, offers an artificial stimulus so intense that it makes any real experience seem bland. How pornography hacks the system. Now that you understand the basics of dopamine, it becomes easier to see how pornography hacks this system. Think with me. In real life, to get pleasure, you need effort. Want to eat something tasty? You need to cook or go out to buy. Want to conquer someone? You need to talk, create a bond, expose yourself. Want to win a competition? You need to train, wear yourself out, insist. There is always a path, there is always a limit. But in pornography, no. Just open a tab, give a few clicks, and ready. A flood of stimuli, infinite options, zero effort. The brain, which was not designed to deal with this abundance, gets lost. It interprets each scene as if it were a real achievement. But as there is no limit, you can repeat this process for hours. Result: a superstimulation that no natural behavior can match. It's as if pornography were a counterfeit version of real life. It imitates pleasure, but without giving anything in return. And the worst: the more you use, the more the brain learns that this is the fastest way to obtain dopamine. Therefore, simple things begin to lose their shine. Studying doesn't give dopamine so quickly. Training requires effort. Talking to someone can generate rejection. Pornography delivers everything for free, in seconds. The brain, naive, gets addicted to this shortcut. This hack is so powerful that it even alters the way the brain responds to stimuli. Studies show that the circuits of those who consume pornography in excess are similar to those of users of chemical drugs. Areas linked to motivation, pleasure, and decision-making become dysregulated. The result is predictable: compulsion. You no longer seek because you want to, but because the brain has already associated that as a need. And maybe you have already felt this in practice. That moment when you promise not to watch but end up giving in without even thinking. That automatic click that seems not to pass through reason. That's exactly it. The hack happened. Your mind has been trained to act like this. But here comes the good part. If the brain has learned, it can also unlearn. This hack is not permanent, it can be reversed. Only for that, you need to understand that you are not fighting only against a habit, but against a neurochemical conditioning. It's not just about willpower, it's about reprogramming the machine. And the first step to reprogram is simple. Stop falling into the trap. Every time you say no, you start to weaken the hack. Every time you resist, you show the brain that there are other paths. The process may be uncomfortable at the beginning, but it is the only way to regain control. The excess of dopamine. Now let's go straight to the point. The biggest problem of pornography is not only the pleasure it offers, but the excess. Each new scene you watch is not just another video, it is a new peak of dopamine in your brain. In real life, nature has placed limits. You eat and are satisfied. You have an intimate relationship and then need some time until you feel desire again. These limits protect the system from becoming overloaded. Only in pornography, there is no limit. You can open 10 tabs in a few minutes. You can change scenes infinitely. You can search for new categories without end. And the brain, which was programmed to release dopamine at each novelty, goes into short circuit. Each click is interpreted as if it were a completely new experience, and therefore releases a new dose of dopamine. The result? A sequence of artificial peaks, far beyond what real life could offer. It's as if you had a body prepared to light a small fire, but suddenly threw it in the middle of a forest fire. The fire is so much that the receptors begin to protect themselves, turning off. The brain was not made to withstand this intensity, so it reacts trying to balance. It decreases the sensitivity. The problem is that when this happens, you don't feel only less pleasure with pornography. You feel less pleasure in everything. The food seems tasteless. The conversations seem boring. The work seems too heavy. Even things that used to give you encouragement start to seem boring. And ironically, the easiest way out that the brain finds is to seek even more pornography, to try to compensate for the lack of pleasure. This excess creates a vicious cycle. The more you watch, the less you feel pleasure in simple things. And the less pleasure you feel, the more you seek artificial stimuli. This is how the habit becomes compulsion. You are not just choosing to watch, you are being pushed by a chemical system that has learned to depend on this excess. And here is the truth that many do not want to hear. There is no moderate consumption of something that hacks your brain in this way. It's not like drinking a glass of wine at dinner, it's more like drinking a liter of distillate at once. The impact is not proportional, it is destructive. And every time you feed this cycle, you reinforce the idea that quick and artificial pleasure is more important than any real achievement. The excess of dopamine from pornography is like a constant explosion inside your mind. It may seem pleasurable at the moment, but in the long run, it leaves a trail of destruction, apathy, anxiety, lack of energy, and even depression. The bill always arrives. The effect of desensitization. After a while of consumption, an inevitable phenomenon happens: desensitization. What does this mean? That what once seemed exciting ceases to have effect. The first time you watched pornography, it was probably impactful, a novelty that generated a strong peak of pleasure. But the brain does not take long to get used to it. And when it gets used to it, it demands more. It is the same mechanism of tolerance in drugs. Who starts drinking a can of beer soon needs 3 to feel the same effect. Who starts smoking eventually needs to increase the dose. The brain adapts, and the initial excitement is lost. With pornography, the process is even faster, because the variety is infinite. The brain understands, this is no longer new, I need something stronger. And then begin the increasingly extreme searches. Different categories, more intense scenes, fantasies that you didn't even imagine before. What was once enough is no longer. It's as if the mind were always one step ahead, asking for more, more and more. This is not healthy curiosity. This is a clear sign of desensitization. The cruelest thing is that this desensitization is not restricted to consumption. It overflows into life. That music that used to cheer you up no longer moves you so much. That food that used to satisfy you no longer has grace. Even real relationships suffer. The touch of someone, the kiss, the look, everything loses intensity because the brain is accustomed to unreal doses. It is at this point that many men begin to feel an inexplicable emptiness. They still consume pornography, but do not feel the same pleasure. Then they increase the dose, spend more time, seek stranger categories, but nothing seems to fill. The pleasure decreases, but the consumption increases. This is the perfect trap of desensitization. And maybe you have already felt this. The apathy, the lack of enthusiasm, the feeling that nothing is enough. It is not lack of willpower. It is the desensitized brain. It's as if the volume of pleasure were always at maximum, and now the adjustment button broke. Only silence remained. The good news is that this desensitization is not permanent. The brain is plastic. It can relearn to value the simple, but for that, it needs abstinence, it needs time, it needs consistency. In the beginning, it will seem that life has lost its color, but little by little, the senses return. And when they return, you realize that that hug, that smile, that achieved goal have a much greater value than any screen could give. The effect of desensitization is hard, but it is also the sign that the brain is still trying to adjust. Do not see this as an end. See it as the maximum alert that something needs to change. The cycle of compulsion. Now that you have understood the excess and the desensitization, it becomes easier to see how the cycle of compulsion is born. It works like this. You watch pornography, feel immediate pleasure, but soon this pleasure disappears. The emptiness comes. To fill this emptiness, you seek again. Only because of tolerance, you need more time, more intensity, more novelty. The more you consume, the more empty it gets. The more empty, the more you consume. It is a downward spiral. This cycle is identical to what happens with chemical drugs and even gambling. The player bets, wins a small reward, the brain releases dopamine. But soon the sensation disappears, and he needs to bet again, believing that the next will be the great victory. With pornography, there is no money involved, but the process is the same. Expectation, quick reward, emptiness, repetition. Compulsion is not just strong will. It is when the behavior escapes control. You don't think, you react. You promise not to do, but minutes later, you catch yourself repeating. It's like being on autopilot, and each repetition reinforces the paths in the brain, like increasingly deep trails. The habit ceases to be choice and becomes slavery. And the cruelest thing is that this compulsion consumes time, hours and hours wasted, which could be invested in studying, working, training, living real experiences. Pornography steals not only the energy, but also the future. Each night lost in front of the screen is a buried opportunity. Maybe you have already felt this prison, looking at the clock and realizing that you have spent hours without even noticing, or promising that you would see only one video and end up trapped in a marathon without end. This is not just lack of discipline. It is the cycle of compulsion in control. But here is the key. Recognizing this cycle is the first step to breaking it. Because while you think you are just enjoying, you will continue to be trapped. But when you realize that you are being manipulated by a chemical mechanism, consciousness begins to open space for resistance. The cycle of compulsion seems invincible, but it is not. Just as it was built, it can be deconstructed. The path is abstinence, it is discipline, it is reconstruction. It will not be easy. The brain will scream, will beg, will try to convince you that it needs it. But each no that you say is one more brick in the wall against compulsion. And remember, compulsion does not define who you are. It is just a temporary state of the brain created by repeated choices. And if choices created, different choices can undo. The cycle can be broken. Impact on focus and motivation. Maybe you have already noticed, when you are consuming pornography frequently, Studying seems impossible. The work loses its shine. Even simple things like tidying up the room seem like a marathon. This is not laziness. This is a direct consequence of how dopamine works. Dopamine is not the pleasure itself, but the engine that drives you to seek pleasure. It is what makes you get out of bed to train, open the book to study, start that difficult project. But when pornography hijacks this engine, the natural motivation begins to disappear. The brain gets used to receiving absurd doses of dopamine with zero effort. So when a task appears that requires dedication, such as writing a report or learning something new, the contrast is brutal. The brain looks at the task and thinks, why? This doesn't give enough dopamine. The result is a silent exhaustion. You even have time, but you can't start. You keep spinning on social networks, watching short videos, anything that delivers immediate stimulus, and deep down, a feeling of frustration grows. Because you know you should be doing something important, but you can't move. This drains self-esteem. You start to feel incapable, weak, unproductive. The worst is that this apathy does not stop at studying or working. It invades the whole life. Even leaving the house, talking to someone, taking care of the body, everything loses strength. And then comes the emptiness. The cheap pleasure of pornography steals the energy of real achievements. The brain does not understand that this artificial stimulus has no value. It only learns that natural motivation can be turned off because there is a faster and more intense source of dopamine. This theft is dangerous because it undermines the foundations of the future. No one builds something solid without focus. No one grows without discipline. When you are trapped in this cycle, even what you have already achieved begins to deteriorate. Projects remain unfinished, relationships cool down, opportunities pass unnoticed. It's like trying to run with a backpack full of stones on your back. You can even take a few steps, but soon you feel stuck. But here is the good news. This impact is not irreversible. When you cut pornography, focus and motivation do not return from one day to the next, but begin to re-emerge. In the beginning, it seems difficult to concentrate even on small tasks. But over time you realize that studying for 10 minutes is already possible, then 20. Then an hour. It's like training an atrophied muscle. It hurts in the beginning, but it gains strength with each repetition. Pornography hijacked your dopamine and stole your focus. But it doesn't have to define the rest of your life. Every time you resist, every time you choose a real task instead of the easy shortcut, you are returning fuel to the engine of motivation, pornography and social anxiety. Another often overlooked effect is how pornography impacts your social relationships. It may seem strange because, in theory, watching videos alone shouldn't affect how you talk to or connect with other people. But the truth is, it does a lot. When the brain gets used to always seeking pleasure on a screen, it begins to associate reward with isolation. Instead of feeling motivated to talk, socialize, leave the house, it understands that pleasure is just a click away, inside the room, in secret. This creates a profound distortion. You start to feel less interested in real interactions, and worse, you start to feel anxiety when faced with them. Think about it. In pornography, you have total control. You decide what to watch, when to change, when to stop. In human contact, this control doesn't exist. Relationships involve unpredictability, vulnerability, effort. The brain, already addicted to easy and risk-free pleasure, starts to see this as hard work. The result? Shyness increases, insecurity grows, and even talking seems like a burden. Studies already show that excessive pornography consumption is linked to greater social anxiety. It's no coincidence. When you spend hours in an artificial world, your mind loses practice in the real world. It's like an athlete who stops training. The body weakens. Here it's the same thing, only with your ability to connect. Maybe you've already felt this. Difficulty maintaining eye contact, feeling uncomfortable in groups, fear of exposing yourself. And ironically, the solution many find is to return to pornography, because in the digital environment, there is no judgment, no rejection. It's safe, but it's also empty. Every time you choose the screen over interaction, you reinforce the association of pleasure with isolation. Pornography not only steals focus, but also sabotages your social life. It creates men who seem strong on the outside, but who on the inside feel incapable of dealing with simple situations. A conversation, a date, a true friendship. The good news is that this effect can also be reversed. When you reduce pornography and expose yourself more to the real world, the brain gets used to human interactions again. In the beginning, it may be strange, but little by little, looking into eyes becomes natural again, talking becomes pleasurable again, and even the confidence to approach someone begins to be reborn. Don't underestimate this. Pornography not only destroys your brain chemistry, but also your ability to live as a social being. Resisting means recovering something that goes far beyond individual discipline. It means recovering your humanity. The invisible addiction. One of the reasons why so many men remain trapped for years is precisely the fact that pornography addiction is invisible. It doesn't leave a cigarette smell, it doesn't leave empty bottles, it doesn't alter the body in an obvious way like other drugs. From the outside, no one sees. And that's why it grows in silence, hidden in the dark. This is the danger. When no one notices, you yourself tend to minimize it. It's not that bad, you think. I could stop whenever I wanted to. But while you repeat these phrases, the years go by, your energy disappears, your self-esteem drops. The addiction continues to act, corroding from the inside while everything seems normal on the outside. It's like rust in an iron structure. On the outside, it still looks strong, but on the inside, it's already corroded, about to collapse. How many men are like this today? How many live smiling in public, but secretly carry the weight of this habit? It's a prison without bars, but one that imprisons with the same force. And maybe you've already felt this, the feeling of being alone in a fight that no one understands. The fear of telling someone, the shame of admitting it. This silence is the fortress of addiction. It feeds on your loneliness, on your hidden guilt. The less you talk, the more it grows. The invisible addiction is also treacherous because it doesn't have a red alert. There is no overdose, there is no immediate collapse. What exists is slow erosion, less energy, less confidence, less will to live. Until the day you realize that years have passed and you are still stuck in the same cycle. This is where the importance of awareness comes in. Recognizing that pornography is a real addiction, that it alters the brain, that it destroys focus and social life. When you face it as an addiction, you take away its power to seem harmless. Because the worst lie it tells is exactly this. It's not that serious. But now you know. Now you can't fool yourself anymore. The addiction may be invisible, but it is not invincible. It only remains strong while you pretend it doesn't exist. The moment you decide to open your eyes, face it, take on the fight, the chain begins to weaken. The invisible addiction is real, but it is also defeatable. And every step you take towards abstinence is proof that the invisibility is over. You see now. And whoever sees is no longer a slave in the same way. The abstinence process. Stopping pornography consumption is not just a mental decision. It is also a chemical turnaround inside the brain. When you cut off the stimulus, it reacts as any addict reacts, with withdrawal. And that's where many give up, not because they don't have strength, but because they don't understand what's happening inside them. Think of someone who smoked for years and decides to quit smoking. The body asks for nicotine. Irritation, anxiety, nervousness come. The brain screams, "I need that to function." With pornography, the mechanism is similar. The difference is that the addiction is invisible, silent, hidden inside the mind, but the withdrawal is real. In the first few days, you may feel clear symptoms: lack of pleasure in simple things, difficulty concentrating, changes in sleep, peaks of irritability. It's as if the world lost its color. This phase is called by many flatline, a period in which natural dopamine seems to disappear, and this emptiness scares. You may think, "I was better before, at least I felt something." But that's a lie. What you felt before was chemical anesthesia. The emptiness now is the body trying to rebalance itself. Withdrawal also manifests itself in strong impulses. The urge to return seems unbearable, as if it were a physical need. But understand, this is not proof of weakness, it is proof of adaptation. The brain, accustomed to receiving artificial doses of dopamine, is charging the lack. But the longer you resist, the faster the system adjusts. It is at this point that many relapse, because they interpret withdrawal as a sign that something is wrong, when in fact it is the opposite. Withdrawal is a sign that something is finally right. You are taking the brain out of prison, and every escape causes resistance. Therefore, when you feel the symptoms, don't despair. Recognize them as a natural part of the process. It's like training pain. It hurts because the muscle is growing. Here, it hurts because the mind is rebuilding itself. Record this. Withdrawal is not failure, it is healing in progress. The possible reprogramming. Now comes the part that should fill you with hope. The brain is not a broken machine, it is plastic. This means that it can adapt, create new paths, regenerate itself. And this is the key to understanding why abstinence, even if difficult, is so worthwhile. Every time you say no to pornography, you send a clear message to the brain. This path is no longer the standard. In the beginning, it resists. It tries to pull you back to the old trail because it has been conditioned for years. But over time, this trail begins to disappear. It's like a dirt road. The less you go through it, the more the weeds grow and cover the path. At the same time, new trails begin to be opened. When you feel pleasure in something simple, a good meal, a walk, a true conversation, these moments activate the natural dopamine circuit. Every time you value these real pleasures, you are strengthening a new route inside the brain. It is the process called neuroplasticity in action. And this doesn't just happen in the field of pleasure. Reprogramming also affects focus, energy, confidence. The same brain that previously only motivated itself with clicks begins to motivate itself with real achievements. The discipline that seemed impossible begins to seem natural. The willpower that seemed weak begins to consolidate. Many men report that after a few weeks without pornography, they begin to feel a mental clarity that they had not experienced for years. Ideas flow, conversations become easier, physical energy increases. This is not magic. It is the brain relearning to function without artificial dopamine. But here's the secret. This reprogramming doesn't happen automatically just because you stopped. It needs consistency. It needs you to resist impulses, and at the same time feed the brain with healthy stimuli. The more you play sports, socialize, get involved in hobbies, study, the faster the mind reorganizes itself. Pornography hijacked your neurochemistry, but the brain is not an eternal hostage. It is resilient, it can heal, and you can be responsible for that cure. Resuming real pleasures. Perhaps the most transformative point of the process is this: rediscovering the real pleasures of life. Because in the beginning everything seems bland. It's as if nothing had flavor, nothing had color. But over time something incredible happens. The simple becomes extraordinary again. A well-made meal starts to taste real. The music you already listened to but didn't feel shivers again. A conversation yields spontaneous laughter. A hug warms, the sun on the face, the wind in the late afternoon. Even a common bath become valuable. This is natural dopamine returning to occupy the space that belongs to it. Pornography hijacks because it offers intensity without substance. But real life offers substance, even if in smaller doses. And this substance is what really sustains. When the brain relearns to be satisfied with the natural, you realize that you no longer need the exaggeration. What previously seemed bland becomes tasty again. This return doesn't happen overnight. In the beginning, you will still feel the emptiness. You will still think that nothing is funny. But as the days go by, the palate of the mind begins to recover. It's like someone who took sugar out of their diet. In the beginning, everything seems tasteless. But after a few weeks, fruit seems sweet like never before. The same happens with the brain when you cut pornography. Recovering real pleasures also changes your relationship with people. Suddenly, a look has an impact. A conversation yields energy. Being present in a meeting, in a friendship, in a simple moment brings genuine satisfaction. And you begin to realize that nothing in pornography can compare to this. This is the great prize of the journey. It is not just resisting, it is rediscovering. Abstinence is difficult, but it opens space for something much bigger, the ability to live for real. The final alert. It's time to speak bluntly. Pornography is not just a harmless pastime, it's not just a man's thing, and much less something that is restricted to a few minutes in front of the screen. It shapes entire brains. Each click alters your reward system. Each video reinforces chemical connections that trap you. Each repeated habit digs a deeper hole inside your mind. The biggest lie you can believe is, "I have control. I stop when I want." This phrase has already imprisoned millions, because pornography doesn't work like a simple habit. It works like a virus. It invades your mind, alters your internal functioning, and creates dependence. While you think you're just having fun, the brain is learning to be satisfied only with that. And when you realize it, you no longer feel pleasure in almost anything outside the screen. This alert is important because many spend years believing that they are not so bad. They think they can balance, that there is no problem in using it once in a while. But if it were harmless, you wouldn't be here on the 6th day, seeking strength to free yourself. If it were just fun, it wouldn't drain your energy, it wouldn't corrode your confidence, it wouldn't tear pieces from your self-esteem every time the screen goes out. Pornography is addictive because it uses the same logic as drugs and the casino. Quick reward, infinite expectation, increasing doses. Only unlike chemical drugs, it doesn't leave a smell, it doesn't leave a physical mark, it doesn't give obvious external signs. It acts in silence, in the shadows. That's why it's so dangerous. Because you can live for years thinking that everything is fine until you realize that you no longer feel joy in anything, that you can no longer build real relationships, that your motivation has disappeared. Don't be fooled. Every time you give in, you are reinforcing invisible currents. Every time you resist, you are weakening these currents. This is the war. And this is the point of the alert. You can't treat pornography as something neutral. You can't play at consuming just a little because it doesn't want just a little. It wants everything, your energy, your discipline, your life. Today, on this 6th day, you need to carve this inside yourself. Pornography is the enemy. It doesn't deserve space, it doesn't deserve excuses, it doesn't deserve negotiation. From the moment you understand this, half the fight is already won. We have reached the end of day 6 and perhaps you are completely exhausted, carrying the accumulated weight of 6 days of constant resistance. Maybe you even doubt whether you really have within you what is necessary to move forward, whether it is worth continuing this fight that sometimes seems infinite. But before any thought of giving up takes over, I need you to remember everything you discovered today. This is not just about holding back impulse with brute force. It's not about gritting your teeth and holding on for a few more days. You are literally reprogramming an entire brain, rewiring neural circuits that have been shaped for years, perhaps decades. Pornography is not just any habit that you can quit, like stopping biting your nails or giving up sweets. It is a sophisticated chemical virus that hijacked your mind, that infiltrated the command center of your motivation and rewrote the rules of what makes you feel satisfaction. But here is the liberating truth. You don't have to be a slave to this virus forever. You are not condemned to live trapped in this cycle until the end of your life. What you have achieved so far is already monumentally significant. The overwhelming majority of men never reach the 6th day. Statistically, numerically, factually, most sincere attempts at change do not pass the first week. Many fall before even completing 72 hours. But you resisted. You crossed the valley of death of the first days. You survived the dopamine crash. You remained standing when everything inside you screamed to surrender. And that means something profound about who you really are. It means that within you, there is enough strength, enough discipline, enough character to continue. If you managed to get this far, if you went through the most difficult moments when abstinence was at its peak, when each hour seemed like an eternity, then you can manage to get to day 7, to day 10, to day 30, to wherever your ambition takes you. It's not a matter of having superpowers or a special personality. It's a mathematical matter of repeating the correct decision every day, 1 hour at a time, one resisted impulse at a time. It's about understanding that you have already proven to be capable, and now you just need to apply this proven ability consistently. Today, you understood the real science behind addiction. You saw clearly that this is not moral weakness of character, it is not lack of willpower, it is not a personal defect that makes you inferior to other men. It is pure neurochemistry being exploited. It is brain conditioning being used against you. It is biology being manipulated by algorithms and artificial stimuli, and that can be changed, that can be reversed, that can be cured. The same brain that was shaped and conditioned by pornography can be reprogrammed through conscious and consistent discipline. Each no that you say to an impulse is not just passive resistance, it is a new line of code being written inside your mind. Each resistance is an update to your mental operating system. Each day without pornography is literally a solid brick being placed in the wall of your freedom. You are not just trying to stop a habit, you are rebuilding your neurological identity from scratch. You are becoming a completely different version of yourself, stronger, freer, more in control. Now is the crucial moment to transform this understanding into renewed commitment. Subscribe to this channel to continue receiving these scientifically tested weapons of war, because the next few days will be crucial. Each phase of the journey brings new challenges, new triggers, new opportunities for both victory and relapse. You need to be prepared with specific knowledge for each step, and leave your renewed commitment here in the comments. Write the word focus. It's not just a word thrown into digital space, it is a public contract that you are signing with yourself. It is the war flag that you are raising on this battlefield, declaring to yourself and to everyone who can see, I will not give up, I will not retreat, I will stay focused on what really matters. And here is something you need to engrave deeply. The war is long, longer than you would like, more complex than you imagined at the beginning, but each step counts exponentially. Each day, one not only adds a number to your count, it multiplies your confidence, strengthens your identity, proves once again that you are capable of things that seemed impossible. Today you won another significant battle. Tomorrow will be a new battle, with new challenges and new opportunities for growth. But now you enter this next battle with more knowledge, more experience, more concrete evidence that victory is possible. And with each accumulated victory, slavery loses strength. With each correct choice repeated, the old patterns weaken. With each day of freedom lived, the new identity solidifies. Day 6 ends here. Another milestone won. Another evidence that you are stronger than your worst moments try to convince you. You are still standing when millions would have already fallen. You are still fighting when most would have already given up. You are still building when others only know how to destroy. And that, in itself, is a victory that no one can take from you. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of the achievement. Prepare for the next phase, because you are no longer the same person who started this journey 6 days ago. You are someone who has proven that real change is possible.